Yes, well, time flies. We're launching into already the third edition of Sterlo's Wrap, and so far the Dragons undefeated, the Warriors undefeated, the Raiders winless, Peter Sterling, your beloved, Eels winless.
Sitting on the bottom of the ladder, Joel, I knew it was going to be a first month of upsets and some strange results. I didn't expect a couple of the sides to be situated where they are, especially the Parramatta Eels.
What about the grand final rematch, the Melbourne Storm? Despite those players, you look at the grand final last year and the salary, if you like, has all skewed back to the Cowboys with McLean and, of course, Scott there and Thurston, but they keep doing it, don't they?
They do. That's 7 wins in a row now, the Melbourne Storm over the North Queensland Cowboys. And remarkably, since Amy Park came into being in 2010, Cameron Smith has not lost consecutive games at that ground. I find that absolutely remarkable.
Unbelievable.
Stop-start game, a lot of penalties in this match, but I thought ultimately, maybe the scoreline flattered Melbourne a little bit, but I thought that they were clearly the better side. Started off with some attack that was very fluent and looking to attack wide, but then the damage was done around the play the ball area where Cameron Smith's a nice, smart play. I thought the back row was outstanding. Stimson, Hoffman were very, very good. Dale Finucane probably best on the park. But a guy like Sofa Solomona, when you lose big men like Harris and McLean, then you need someone to step up. And this young man here really has done that. He's a huge presence. Didn't play a lot of minutes, played about half a game, but his presence was really felt during that period of time. So he looked really good, I thought. For the North Queensland side, if you can control Jonathan Thurston, obviously, and Jason Taumalolo, you go a long way towards success. And I thought that the Melbourne Storm did that very, very well. Michael Morgan, his first game back, didn't look like he was completely free in his movement. Will be better from here on in. But a really good performance from the Melbourne Storm. Very rare for these two sides to meet coming off last start losses. And Melbourne, they were the side that bounced back the quicker of the two. Could have been a little bit easier. I think it's been established that Suliasu Vunivalu is a try scorer, not a ball player. Or maybe he's just filthy on Josh Adokar and doesn't want to compete against him when it comes to the leading try scorer.
Well, I was going to say, Pete, about the depth they have. Like Kafusi didn't play Felice Kafusi, but look, if the halves have any sort of problem, he is not the answer, is he, Suliasu?
No, he's not. And I've got to say, I thought Brody Croft learnt from maybe a pretty quiet 20-25 minute period to finish the game the week previous. He looked a little bit more in control in this game, so it's a learning experience for a young player who doesn't have many first-grade games under his belt, but is in a key position. 19
penalties for the match. Do we see a change this week? What's the answer, Pete?
Well, that's on average. And we'll see a change if the players and the coaches adapt. And Cameron Smith and Craig Bellamy after this game basically said, all right, look, the responsibility is back on us. We know what the referees want now. We know that they're going to be relentless. It's not as though the referees have put their hand up and said, all right, we're giving too many penalties. If they're there to be blown, they will. So the players have to learn, and we would hope 4 weeks into the competition, we will see a discernible change.
Great week for the new coaches. Dean Pay, he gets his first win with a big win over the Panthers.
Yeah, a big win in regards to that they needed to get off the board, but in the end it was only a 2-point margin, and I did fear for them when Penrith fell 14-0 behind. Remarkably, for the third straight week, the Panthers found themselves with that deficit. But I thought a really good performance from the Bulldogs. I thought probably the best performance we've seen from the front rowers, Aaron Woods and Dave Clemmer. I thought they got really involved. The standout was Moses Mbai.
Oh, brilliant.
He just looks so comfortable back at fullback, and he said that he really didn't enjoy the play, playing in the halves and having to sort of manage the football team. He's a runner of the football.
Great runner.
And he's been an absolute revelation since putting the number 1 on his back. So he was a clear standout in this game. I suppose the other big aspect to come out of it is the fact that Nathan Cleary did not come out for the second half. That showed. And the Panthers are going to be without his services for an extended period, and it will be very, very difficult to fill that young man's boots.
Okay, so have you got a solution there? Like what we have seen, they have been sluggish every single week, the Panthers. Peachy comes onto the field and things seem to change. Is he your 5/8 with Maloney rather to 7? Or does a youngster in Luai come through? Or Katoa go to 9? What do they do here?
Have you got Anthony Griffin's number? Look, I'm not quite sure. There's talk of Peter Wallace going into the halves. And obviously he started out there and he would handle that. But I'm not quite sure if you possibly weaken an area to strengthen one. Peter Wallace is an integral part of this Penrith team and really the hub of what goes on, and you need to be where he has been doing that, in my opinion, from dummy half. So I think they will look to bring something else in. As you say, Peachy came in when Cleary left the field. But Katoa has got a bit of a reputation. He would be an alternative.
Pete, the West Tigers, their first 3 rounds have played the Roosters, the Storm and the Broncos. Now, keeping in mind all those 3 teams have won 2 games, so the form is stacking up. They've conceded just 2 tries in 3 rounds and have 2 wins.
And got beaten by a side that didn't score a
Unbelievable.
try. First time the Brisbane Broncos have ever won a game without getting a 4-pointer. But this is still the best advertisement. The West Tigers are the best advertisement for the draw to be in our game.
Yeah.
I think everybody would have been happy after 80 minutes if both sides had gone away with the 1 point. I've been advocating that. Wayne Bennett, a strong advocate of it as well, and I think that was reinforced in this game. It would have been more palatable if that final penalty had not been, I suppose, determined by Bernard Sutton the next day as being the wrong call. And if you have a look at it, the play of the ball there was not north-south, and that made it much harder for Robbie Rocco to get in the right position. But take nothing away from the Brisbane Broncos. They were afforded a little bit of good fortune here. Young Osako on the wing had an outstanding game, scoring all of their points, just his 4th NRL game, 21-year-old. Started out at Cronulla, but it's been a very good signing for the Brisbane Broncos in the last couple of seasons. But the West Tigers were very, very good. They won't have lost any admirers from that. Josh Reynolds still to come back in the side. I'm very keen to have a look at what goes on in the sheds at half-time, Joel.
5 captains?
Yes, but the man who did most of the talking was big Russell Packer. And again, when I like looking at this kind of vision, I like to see the attention of the players in regards to who is saying the words. And they were locked on Russell Packer, who played big minutes in this game. He's having a real influence on and off the field. So good to see, and a lot of spirit in the camp at the moment. They didn't win the game, and they'll feel aggrieved at that because they probably did enough to certainly get some points out of that match. But very, very tough opposition for Parramatta next week again.
As you see as well, post-game on Channel 9, we see the press conferences. By G spoke well. They're trying to bait him with the, with the decision, but he just said, look, that was the call. We need to be better and win the games without relying on those decisions.
Well, we can't have it both ways, Giles. We can't complain when they don't, or they referee differently in that period, and then when they do blow a penalty, we're up in arms, oh, you've ruined the game. We can't have it both. It's hypocritical to call for something, and then when we get it, well, no, it's not exactly what we wanted. OK,
let's stay on this subject then. Warriors take on the Raiders. Eventful as well, if you want to use that term.
Yeah, and Ricky Stewart very strong coming out that his side should have led 25 points to 6 and probably would have gone on to win that game. But really, I think what Ricky needs to be concentrating on is the last 5 or 6 minutes of this game. The Raiders are now getting a real reputation of being unable to win close matches. If you have a look at their record, it's something like from 35 games of 6 points or less, they've won 9. And that's not the conversion rate you need. And in the end, it's not a coincidence. The Isaac Luke try coming into, when they led by 7 coming into the last 5 minutes, that's as soft as you will see. And then on the back of that, to allow the Warriors to march up the field as easily as they did for Sean Johnson to eventually kick 2 field goals, that's the concern. Yes, maybe they got a bad call early on. I don't think it was a bad call. I don't care about which shoulder the defender is looking at in regards to the decoy runner. I thought that Bunty Afoa was denied an opportunity to tackle Paulo. But, again, we come into the final minutes of this game, and even to allow Sean Johnson 2 field goal attempts from inside the 30 from a restart in play.
They're a big tack too, Canberra. Yeah, and you mentioned those numbers. So last year, 10 games went down to the wire for the Raiders. They won just 2 of those. This year, none from 3. Is that a halves problem, or who do you pen that on? Yeah, look,
I have a question mark on Sam Williams.
Yep.
He's had a number of shots at first grade and has not quite cemented that. And again, there must be a reason to that. But obviously Ricky Stewart is looking to cover the loss and the huge loss of Josh Hodgson. And, he wants to put a half in there, whether it be Caesar or Blake Austin. Austin started on the bench on this occasion. I like Austin and Caesar together. But then, you've got a a problem maybe outside of that as to who you're going to play out of dummy half when Havili is busted, like gassed during the course of the game. One thing I do want to say, the Warriors, a really good win, great start to the season. They haven't won 3 in a row in their existence to start a season. The black spot for me, Adam Blair, again, the shoulder into Aiden Caesar. I hate that. I hate it. As a former ball player, if I go to the line, I'm happy to get belted. But when I've got my back turned and I've relaxed, that's where serious damage is done. And nothing good comes from that. So, he's a repeat offender. And I would hope Stephen Kearney takes him aside after that incident there and says, look, we're a tough pack. We got tough blokes around. We don't need that. It's a cheap shot, not needed in our game. And in the end, 10 minutes in the bin harmed their chances.
Isn't it a great level of rugby league? Last week, Manly scored 50, comfortable win. This week, they concede 34 points. Seabold gets his first victory. Yeah,
what's that? Something like an 80-point turnaround?
Unbelievable. That's rugby league, isn't it?
It is. And look, the South Sydney performance was very good. And I think it had been coming. They'd looked really good in patches, but kind of put it together in this game. Now, we saw Greg Inglis and Dane Gagai get a little bit more football. Their back five were outstanding.
Yep.
But Sam Burgess, he's the man. He's still, along with Jason Taumalolo, the best forward in our game. And it was demonstrated by his non-stop performance, the little effort parts of his game. Like, he's a big man, but his agility, his work rate, the motor he's got is huge. A continuation of what we've seen basically of him in the NRL. But he really stood tall in this game when his side needed it. They hadn't won a game coming into this one against an opposition team that you would imagine would have been very confident and cock a hoop after what they'd achieved the week before.
Putting the coach's cap on, now both Manly and Parramatta have had a flat week. Can you blame the heat from the week before? No?
No, I can't, Joel. We've got professional sportsmen now and the science around them in getting them right before a game that's going to be played in extreme heat and also after, it's second to none. So no, I don't see that as an excuse at all. It's more mental. When you come out of it, and as you know, when you've had a big win, sometimes the following game is very, very difficult to get back up to that
motivation.
Intensity. Well, maybe, if everybody is a couple of percentages down, then across the board, that equates to something. And I just think Manly, maybe the players just thought, maybe it'll come a little bit easier than what it was going to. And it's hard to go in with the same mindset maybe as that before that big win, and I think they obviously paid a price for that.
Sometimes the best gifts come badly wrapped. Now, Moylan was ruled out of the Sharks team. In comes Hodkinson. Is that a blessing long term for the Sharks? Does Moylan return at fullback perhaps?
Well, it mightn't be a blessing for Matt Moylan, but look, Shane Flanagan has come out and said that Matt Moylan, when he returns, will come back into the halves.
Okay.
But they did look very composed, didn't they, with Trent Hodkinson? He looked healthy, Trent Hodkinson. I know we've just come out of an off-season, but he's a player who has carried injury for a number of seasons now, and that certainly hurt his chances of playing regular football with the Newcastle Knights. But boy, what a backup he is. And the very fact he didn't even have to do the goal kicking. So Chad Townsend's obviously worked very hard on that part of his game. Look, it was a gritty win from Cronulla after the start that these sides had. A win was important, and Cronulla ground their way to that. The conditions suited their style of game. I was disappointed again with Parramatta. Not the effort. The effort was there this week, but they looked lacklustre.
So what's 3 weeks we've seen now? What is the number one problem they're having?
Well, they've got a few problems, I think, and one of them is what they do with the football in the attacking zone. They threw very little at the Cronulla defence, and again, the conditions weren't great, but I have high expectations of Mitchell Moses and Corey Norman. Now, even when your forward pack isn't dominating, when you're a 6 or 7, you have got to impose yourself into the game. Put a runaround on. Go from the open side quickly to the short side, which they normally do very well, and try and create something. I didn't see that in their game. So I thought, there was effort in the Parramatta performance, but they looked impotent at this end of the field. And as I say, you've got to throw something at the opposition defence that they haven't seen before. I didn't see that from the 6 and the 7. I'm not blaming them completely. There was effort there from Parramatta. There needs to be effort there again in their matches coming up, because at the moment they're in strife. Of course, coming out of that game, real injury concerns. Jared Hayne left the field.
Yeah.
Bevan French looks like he's busted. Tepai Marawa, a little bit of doubt as well. Now, the problem for Parramatta is Brad Takarangi is out for possibly another 6 weeks.
Gutherson's still in a month or so.
Gutherson's unavailable. So he might have to do a little bit of clever work here, Brad Arthur, in putting somebody in the centres or someone that's not normally a specialist in that position.
Well, the team who got bagged for their attack last year, they have let that go. The Dragons. We've seen another week on Channel 9 on a Sunday game where a team has notched up 50. The mighty Dragons, they lead the comp.
Yeah, and deservedly so. Played some sparkling football. This game started in the most ordinary fashion it could have for the Gold Coast Titans, with Kane Elgey dropping the football. And really from that moment on, it was one-way traffic. Really sparkling performance from the Dragons. They looked great across the park. You know, the 6 and the 7 are a great combination, and again, are only going to get better. But I like the forward pack. The forward pack is mobile. There's a little bit of skill in there. The vision of the players is excellent. Nene McDonald is playing the best football we've seen. Ewan Aikens had a great start as well. Laffey looks dangerous every time he touches the football. It's just a complete performance against the Gold Coast Titans team here that defensively on the edges had no idea. Now, Garth Brennan has got some real work to do. You know, obviously the scoreline indicates that. But the Dragons went out there with a plan to attack both Ash Taylor and Elgey on the edges, and it worked to perfection. You know, at times the Gold Coast Titans defence just looks so flat-footed. And when the other side looks sparkling with the football, versus you put those up against each other, and all of a sudden, you know, you are going to have a scoreline like that. So the Dragons doing a lot of good things, but now the Dragons have to do what Manly were unable to do next week, and come up with a similar performance with the same intensity and the same desire and hunger from the opening whistle.
Dufty was brilliant on that hard surface, almost impossible to stop, which brings back players like Ponga when it gets a bit sluggish, which we saw. They were brought back down to earth, weren't they, the Knights? It was just a brilliant display defensively from the Roosters.
Yeah, look, it's a reality check for Newcastle. You know, this was a battle between a side capable of winning the competition against a team who I don't think will play finals football. But the Newcastle Knights are a much different beast to what they've been the last couple of years. You know, this won't be the last time that they concede, you know, quite a few points, but they're going to be competitive and they're going to win more matches than we've seen. So, you know, they're heading in the right direction, but they met a quality outfit here. And I've got to say, the 2 tries just before half-time were absolute killer blows against the Knights and really put them back on their heels. And a couple of tries did come from kicks, you know, deflections. You know, Ria Hargreaves scored with his first touch from a bomb, but they were first to the football, and so that was a great sign for Trent Robinson. Luke Keary and Cooper Cronk look very, very good together. That brings everybody else into play. James Tedesco, Latrell Mitchell. The forwards were strong. Blake Ferguson's had a great start to the season. Just a really good performance, but, you know, there's a deflection there that went against the Newcastle Knights. Kalen Ponga had that covered. So if I'm Nathan Brown, I'm disappointed, but I'm not devastated. I'm not overly disappointed. You know, they've taken 3 steps forward. This is 1 step back. Now they need to take step forwards again.
A lot of footy to be played. Cleary out. Does that bring Keary into the discussion?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, he's a quality player. You know, he was arguably the buy of the year last year, and now he looks like a seasoned, established first grader, but with really good players around him, which makes it easier. But he's a quality player, and we need to start speaking about him a little bit more in those terms.
Thank you, Pete. That's week 3 of Sterlo's Wrap. We'll catch you next week.